Hello there! Today I'm filming a video about my experience in college as someone who has ASD, PANDAS, PANS and Tics. Now, college in the UK is different from college in America. In America, when people say college, they are referring to university. I am not. I'm referring to basically sixth form sort of thing. It's where people go when they're 16, straight after they finish secondary school. So I have pretty much finished college completely now, and I wanted to talk about the sort of support I got and why it was good and my experiences really. So when I first started the college course, I was kind of confused and wary. I was like a bit like an outsider. I didn't really know if I wanted to do the course. I didn't know if I should go back to my old school and attend the sixth form there, but thankfully it turned out to be an incredible course. So I recommend for autistic people to go into a sector related to their special interest, because that's what I did. I did health and social care, and in health and social care they do things related to psychology and you learn about additional needs, and those are things I'm really interested in. Nutrition as well, that's something I'm really interested in. So it was really a mix of all the things I'm passionate about and interested in one course. So that was really good for me. And if you are to start college or something, I would definitely say give it a little while to see if you like it, rather than, you know, on the first day, don't just say, no, I don't like it. You might want to give it some time, unless you are 100% certain that you don't like it. But the likelihood is you actually will like it, and it could be a really good course for you. It's just on the first day, people are normally very uncertain. In terms of exams, in the second year we didn't really have exams because they were cancelled due to lockdown sort of things. But in the first year we did have exams, but I was very lucky that I got exam accommodations. I had a laptop because my handwriting is not very good. I had extra time on my exams. I had a separate room for my tics in case I ticked, even though in the first year I don't really tick that much, but I had that anyway, and rest breaks in case I needed them, but I don't think I used the rest breaks. But it's definitely good to have accommodations put in place. And when I started college, I did not know if I should tell them about my autism diagnosis. I was going to see if I could leave it out, but I eventually did decide to put my autism diagnosis on the form when I started, and it's a good thing I did, because if I didn't put my autism diagnosis on there, I feel like I wouldn't have been as understood. But thankfully they were very understanding, and you know, because sometimes I am very socially awkward, they didn't judge, and nobody judged, which was really, really good. One interesting thing is, I know with the lockdown and everything, it causes a lot of social isolation, and with the the physical distancing and stuff, it can make people feel very lonely, and that can impact mental health. But the thing is, in my college, this sounds really odd to say, but I would say that the way it changed from the first year to the second year was actually, it made it a lot more sensory and autism friendly, because for the first year it was really crowded, and you would have to go into the lunch areas where there's loads of people, and you'd have to walk through corridors where there's loads of people. But by the second year they had changed it, so only like a few classes are in at a time. You don't leave your classroom to go into the lunch hall, which is kind of sad because classes can't really mix, and if you have friends in another class, then that's a bit of an issue. But it actually made it a lot more of a calm environment, because in the first year sometimes I would just go in the library because I didn't want to be around loads of people, and for the second year the whole college was actually really calm because there wasn't loads of people around making noise and stuff like that, so it did make it a lot more sensory friendly. When I was in my first year, I went into a PANDAS flare. No, thankfully I'm a lot better now, but it was actually quite good timing, because it started right before the whole UK got put into lockdown, and that was actually very helpful for me, because then I didn't have to go in whilst in a flare. It would have been impossible anyway. I would have had to have the time off anyway. But the first 3 weeks of the flare were the worst, and for those 3 weeks they were pretty much just setting up the online learning and stuff, so I didn't actually miss out on much. So it's really good timing. My parents emailed my college teacher to say that my symptoms were making it virtually impossible for me to complete my assignments, so I got an extension on that one. But then, it wasn't at the end of my flare, but at the end of the worst of it, I was still experiencing symptoms that were making it really difficult to do things in the same way as others and in the same way I would usually do, but I wasn't completely debilitated by it. I was feeling ready to make a start on my assignments again, but by that time I had about 5 assignments due. 5 assignments when you have literally just come out of the worst of a flare and you're still in the flare, but having to do 5 assignments in that state is like, oh no. But thankfully my teachers were really understanding. I emailed them and explained the situation. I was like, I've got intrusive thoughts, I've got brain fog, I've got hyperactivity, and I can't focus. This isn't gonna work. Can I have an extension? And they gave me an extension, and it wasn't even really an extension, it was more just get it in when you can, it doesn't really matter. So I did that, and that was very helpful. I'm very, very grateful that they allowed me to do that, because otherwise it would have been impossible for me to get it in. And people often say, you know, don't say anything's impossible, but genuinely sometimes a condition does stop you from doing things, and there's no shame in that. So sometimes you do need more support and you can't be held to the same standards as others, and that's okay. But yeah, I did find ways to work around my issues and complete my assignments, even whilst experiencing symptoms. So one of the big things was speech to text, because I was having difficulty typing stuff, because I just could not focus on it. I couldn't focus on typing, but I could focus on speaking. Because when I spoke, I think my intrusive thoughts actually went down a bit, whereas when I was typing, they were happening a lot. So I used speech to text for a lot of my assignments, and that's just how I did it. And that's what worked for me. And I also, I spoke about this stuff a lot in a video I made about a year ago, about studying and doing academic work with a neuro condition, but I did find these ways to go around it. And if I was having an episode of symptoms, I would just take a break. I would sometimes go sit out on the trampoline to work because I was too hyper to just sit normally. I would sometimes wander around the kitchen whilst doing work. There was one time where I had to revise for an exam, literally. I revised for an exam the night before the exam got cancelled. So I was revising for it, but I was so hyper. I was like, I'm not going to take any of this in. So I had to attempt to find ways to try and go around the hyperactivity and being completely unable to focus. And I started trying to sing my revision notes, because that's just how I had to do it. I could not, if I was going to try and read a paper like most people would, I wouldn't take any of it in. So I had to do it in a unique way, and that's just what worked for me. Because my flare was around the same time the UK went into lockdown, which was March. Chicken nugget. It was in March, so we actually got to leave the year early. So I feel like it might have been about May we actually got to leave. So we got a really long holiday. So that was really, really, really helpful, because I was kind of becoming myself again after having that huge flare, and I had a lot of time off. So that was very helpful and very lucky. Again, good timing. It was also good timing as well, because with the online classes, they did take a while to set up, and for the time they were taking to set them up, I was often experiencing sleep disturbances. So I would really struggle to get up in the morning. So I was quite lucky that, again, there was time off and things like that. Midget. Because in the first year I wasn't in a flare, I hardly ticked in the first year. Like, I did a little bit, but hardly. There was like, maybe out of the whole time I was in college for the first year, there was a few days when I ticked. And they were never like extreme as they are now. Sometimes it was mainly just my stims, pretty much just my stims. But by the second year, I had full-blown coprolalia, yelling random phrases, and lots of different tics. So I I messaged my teacher. We have Microsoft Teams, so I just messaged them on there. I messaged my teacher and explained that when I come back, I was just warning them that I may yell stuff and I may seem a little bit restless and hyperactive. And on my first day back on the second year, I was asked by people in the class, like, why are you ticking and stuff? And I explained PANDAS and that I got an infection and that it all exploded. And thankfully people did seem to understand that. and thankfully the teachers were really accepting. But on the first day it was like I couldn't cope. I went straight out of the classroom and went into the bathroom, and then at the end of the lesson my friend and the teacher came to find me in the bathroom, and because of that it was so difficult for me in class. I couldn't really stay in class because of my tics. I decided to do the vast majority of the year online, and I mean that's what actually a lot of people did, because with lockdown you don't go in, they don't have class in person, so they do it online. But even the times when we weren't in lockdown, I was doing my work online pretty much. I feel like there was probably only a few days when I went in. I think it wasn't very much I was in at all, but doing it online was so helpful for me, because then I could do it in my own way without stressing about what people are thinking about my tics, and being able to be flexible as well, because in class of course it starts at a certain time, you have to finish at a certain time. However, there were times where I was experiencing so many symptoms that I just couldn't do the work, so I would come back and do it later, and you wouldn't have been able to do that in college. So I'm lucky that I was able to do my work at home. And for a lot of people, they would worry about social isolation and loneliness, but because I'm autistic, I'm a bit of an introvert anyway, so I'm okay with being away from people. It actually helps energize me quite a lot. Part of my college course, we had to do a work placement in order to pass the course. In the first year, I was doing my work placement in a school with young kids, but for the second year, I had to change my work placement due to tics, and also kids carry strep a lot. When you have PANDAS, you don't really want to be around people with strep. So those are the two reasons that I changed my work placement. So I ended up doing my work placement with a PANDAS charity, which was very helpful. And again, autistic people, you try and get experience in the sector that you are passionate about, your special interest, because PANDAS and tic disorders are actually my special interest, literally obsessive. But yeah, it was very, very good. I do recommend to autistic people to try and get the experience in their special interest area. It makes a huge difference. But again, I was really lucky because doing the work placement, it was an online work placement, whereas for most people it was in person. Doing an online work placement was helpful for me, because if I was doing an in-person work placement, I'm not too sure if it would work, because I'd end up throwing things at people and yelling at people and breaking things, which is what my tics do quite a bit. So I'm very lucky that I could do an online placement, and also they're really understanding. If I'm having a bad tic episode, I just say, and I can take a break and take some time off my hours, because we have to log our hours, but I can just take time off the hours if my tics are really bad. I was also really lucky that there was a person in my class who also was neurodivergent and had very similar experiences to me. So that was really helpful to have someone to talk to who really understood, and to spend time with them in class and things like that. Another thing that helped me in college is wearing sunglasses, because I sometimes find lighting in public buildings difficult. Not so much in college actually. I'm really grateful that the lights in college aren't too bad, but I still wore the sunglasses there, because if I didn't, it was like paper was too bright and I couldn't focus on it. And when I was wearing sunglasses, it would just calm my hyperactivity, as if my brain was being overstimulated by the light. But when I'm in other public buildings other than college, my light sensitivity is just even worse, because in other public buildings I will kind of tense up and be so out of it. It looks like I have brain fog or something, because I will just be so out of it, and my depth perception goes really weird because there's too much light. If I put sunglasses on, it just helps a lot. So I wore sunglasses for the time when I was in college, but as I said, that was really like only a few days. I pretty much only went in the last day, or if there was some type of assessment, or early on before I made the decision to do it all from home, which I think was maybe like a week or 2 weeks. The good thing about college is that unlike in school, where pretty much unless you have an accommodation, you have to write with pen. In college, some people do just take laptops in and do their work on a laptop, and nobody really cares. So if you have handwriting difficulties, that can actually be really helpful. Penises. My teacher was actually really lovely as well. She printed she printed a sheet of paper that was meant for some sort of assessment, which we ended up not doing because they all got cancelled, but this was in preparation. I had to go in. They printed off the sheet in yellow paper so that it helps my light sensitivity. So it was a really accommodating environment, and sometimes people find it easier to have tinted paper to address that light sensitivity to prevent the contrast from overwhelming someone and making things difficult.